Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Barron, and let's talk about employee motivation, equity theory. Now, there are many helpful theories in understanding employee motivation, and equity theory is one more of those important theories. Equity theory helps us understand how our values influence our motivation. So let's consider the following situation, not an unusual situation. A basketball player in the NBA negotiated for a 5-year, $30 million contract. Now, in year 3 of this 5-year contract, that player has a great season and says, you know what, I want to renegotiate my contract or I'm going to sit out the next season. Now, why might this be happening? Why might this player expect some sort of renegotiation to take place? Well, the answer to this is at the heart of equity theory. And it's probably because he feels like he had more inputs that season, a really high quality performance, and therefore deserves more in terms of outcomes, deserves a larger paycheck. Equity theory has 5 key parts, and if you really understand these 5 parts of equity theory, you'll understand the theory. Number 1, people hold beliefs about their inputs and their outcomes. So their inputs, what they bring to the table at work, includes things like their education, the quality of the work, their quantity of their work, their experience, maybe the number of years that they've worked at that organization, their education, and so forth. And their outcomes could be anything that comes as a result of their behavior at work. So, for example, it could be their pay, it could be their other types of rewards such as recognition and praise. So they hold beliefs about their inputs and their outcomes. Number 2, people compare themselves to a referent other. Now, a referent other refers to anyone that you're comparing yourself to. It could be someone in your department. It could be someone in another organization, a friend. It could be a family member. It could even be yourself from a previous job or some sort of idealized version of yourself, what you think you ought to be getting in terms of your inputs and outcomes. Number 3, people form beliefs about others' inputs and outcomes. So they're not only comparing themselves to a referent other, but they're starting to form beliefs about what they bring to the table and what they get out of the job. Number 4, people compare their input-outcome ratio with others' input-outcome ratios. So they're saying, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I put into my work, and this is what I get out of it. And they're saying, well, I'm comparing myself to this other person, and this is what they're getting out of their job for what they put into it. So they compare those ratios. And number 5, perceptions of inequity, when they're comparing those ratios, motivate behavior to restore equity. And when people compare themselves with each other in this way, they may react in one of 3 basic ways. Number 1, overpayment inequity. And this is the condition resulting in feelings of guilt, in which the ratio of one's outcomes and inputs is more than the corresponding ratio of another person with whom that person compares him or herself. So this is when a person feels like he or she is getting more out of the job for doing less than someone else, so they feel guilty. Number 2, underpayment inequity. This is the condition that results in feelings of anger, in which the corresponding ratio of one's outcomes and inputs is less than the ratio of another person with whom you're comparing yourself. So this is when you think you're getting less out of the job than someone else who brings the same or less to this table in terms of their job. Number 3 is the equitable payment reaction. And this is when a person's outcome or input ratio is equivalent to that of another person with whom he or she is comparing himself. So let's do a quick example. This is the case of Jane and Bob. So Jane and Bob. Jane is experiencing an inequity, and the question is, what can she do to reduce that tension and restore equity in her own mind? Now, her referent other is Bob, who's in her department, and she feels as if Bob gets more outcomes for an equivalent amount of input. So Jane is feeling like she is getting less out of the job for the same amount of work or the same amount of inputs. So what might she do to restore balance? Well, she may try to alter her outcomes. She may demand a raise. She might steal. She might try to alter her inputs. She may decrease her production. She may decrease her quality. She may arrive late. She might attack Bob's inputs, meaning that she might sabotage Bob. She might try to get more work delegated to him. Yeah, Bob can do it. Send it over his way. She might volunteer him for extra work. She may point out his overpayment to others, saying, look at all the money he's getting. She may reevaluate her own perceptions and convince herself of some new facts. She may say, well, maybe Bob actually has more education than I do, or maybe he does actually produce more. She may change her referent other. She may say, you know what, I really shouldn't be comparing myself to Bob. I should be comparing myself to Dave, because Dave is actually a better comparison point. She might do nothing and just sit there and be miserable at work. And for this to occur for the long term is a rare occurrence. For managers, equity theory has a number of important implications. But first, it's important to remember that equity theory is a perception-based theory, meaning that these ratios that I'm talking about that you come up with, they're yours and yours alone. They're going on in your head. So these same two people, Jane and Bob, they could be comparing themselves with each other, and each conclude that the other has a better deal. Now, for managers, the implications of equity theory are all about fairness. And that makes sense because this is a value-based theory. So in terms of payment, it means you should avoid underpaying people, also avoid overpaying people. In addition, give people a voice in decisions that affect them. Let them have some input into the decision-making process, and explain the outcomes and processes in a very thorough manner, being sensitive to these types of issues. Thanks for stopping by and have a great day.